Hello everybody and welcome back to Wappelville. We've got some more Marvel Crisis Protocol for you today. Now I'm just trying to get things set up here. I have no idea if the chat's actually going to work here because last time there was weird stuff going on. That's why I'm getting my windows set up over here so I can see if anybody's actually able to chat with me. I'm also going to turn down my brightness here just a little bit more. This is Red Skull. Skull that's red, so I'm thinking that's why he's called that. We are going to try some object source lighting here with this, and we are going to stick with the ProAcryl Transparent paints from Monument here. Get them on the Creature Caster website. I always call it the paint of 1,000 names, but you can definitely get those. Find them on the Creature Caster website. There are several of them. So you got purple, black, brown, red, yellow, you have a green, and those are all arrayed out on the palette. So you can see we're going to be using the red, the blue, that sort of thing. Now I did, in this little container over here, we've got this Achillean green. Because I'm looking at and you see this picture over here on the right-hand side, the lower right-hand side. It seems like that blue cube has a bit of a greenish glow to it. Now what I wish I had, and I'm going to try and find the blue version of this because I've been using this in a lot of my recent videos here. This is from Golden Acrylics. They have a whole set of fluorescent paints, and those are really nifty, really neat. What we're also going to use here, this is from Vallejo. It's blue fluorescent paint. Now I've used this a few times in other videos. This is from Hellboy. This is Liz Sherman. The whole idea of the fluorescence, it's not about glowing in the dark. It's not about shining a black light on there or anything like that. It's just what we're trying to do is mix stuff like this, these more transparent paints, with the fluorescence and give them that much more of a punch. Okay, so that is what we are going to try and do here. Now I'm going to leave this window about the way it is, see if anybody is able to join up in the chats here. We're going to use ye old craft brushes. Again, they come from Hobby Lobby, but you can get them really from anywhere. This is just water right here. This is another thing, clears and the transparents versus something like the Achillean green and the contrast paints. You can thin these with water, no problem. We also have a bold titanium white over here, but we'll be seeing that later. I am going to do a little peek right here at this. So we obviously are going to do a little bit of a brownish green type of a thing here on his, is that a coat over his uniform? Okay, so we're going to go, I think, maybe more gray with the coat, field green with his uniform. So I'm going to reduce this guy back down here. And let's get in with some black here. And we are going to let that mix with a few other things. We're going to let it mix with transparent brown. And the one thing I wanted to show, the last video that I did, it's the most recent live session. You want to take a little touch of blue with that. Yeah, see how that shifts that color again just a little bit? You get essentially a contrast paint type of an effect. It does the same thing. It sits down in the crevices, does all that sort of stuff. Of course, it does it at half the price pretty much when you look at the size of those containers and what you would say is the size of a typical GW contrast paint container. I believe these are 23 milliliters, something along those lines. So you can see we got some tinting going on there. Well, I'm going to see if I can get the chat to work because there's just all kinds of stupid stuff going on with... Here, let's see just what happens if I try and do this. And if we close that, does it go away? Yeah. So I'm going to see if I can do this. I tried to update all of the widgets and I thought that would help, but apparently that's not going to help. So I'm going to actually authorize this, pardon the interruption here. All right, look at that. Okay, looks like we actually have a chat now. And it's going to stay there. Yay. Okay. So, oh, hey there, Rupe. And, oh, Fruity Scone. You're back. Oh, and Bethany. Wow, this is going to be pretty cool. You actually get to, like, see some of this. Oh, hey, Peter. Oh, thanks, Trevor, for letting me know the chat wasn't working because it was not showing me anything even on YouTube. Now, we mentioned a field green, right? Well, guess what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to start mixing some green and that black together. And we're just going to hit that like so. And this is just like what we've done with other previous things where, look at this. We're just going to let all of this juicy stuff mix together here. We're even going to let a little brown get in there. That's what I love about this. You can just let all of this blend and do its thing. I have no, I'm assuming his hand is going to be red too. So we'll just do that. Give him a red hand. Yeah, I wanted to see if any of the things that I updated were helpful, and that would seem not, because YouTube is real super uncooperative. I have no idea what's going on with that lately. Ever since that last Windows update, it's been pretty much doomsday, sadly, for YouTube. Boots, I'm just going to start out here. Going to throw the transparent black over this, but it's still got some of my other colors mixed into the brush. And then what I'm going to do is we'll give that a few seconds to dry. I think he has a glove on, so we're going to let that dry. So here's some of the previous ones. So here's your Captain Marvel, right? We did this in the very first Marvel Crisis Protocol live session. Then I believe we moved on to Ultron here. So again, all of these, you just look in the Marvel Crisis Protocol playlist. You'll see all of these. Then we moved on to the Captain America with the lighting here, where we're trying to do that street lighting thing. And we had some fun with the shield. And this is the most recent one. I think this was maybe last week and a half ago. We did a Black Panther here, and that was all about trying to get black. Oh, it's a chilly morning in Finland. I wish it was that chilly here, because sadly now it's in the mid-30s, I would think, here, and it's raining, which is just never good. That is like the anti-helpful. I wish we could get back to the, I think it was about 5-6 degrees here for a couple of days. Oh, I wish we could do that. So we're just going to hit this with the transparent red, and you'll be able to see, look at this. We're taking some of the black and brown and all the other, we're practically mixing palette sludge already into our stuff here. So there's your quick red, but you can see how it still shows through. What's the equivalent to that? I would say not Blood Angels red, but Flesh Tearers red. So we basically made something along the lines of this. Oh, Fruity Scone. Oh my goodness. Been following all the way back to Wild West Exodus. Oh, yeah, but it would have been nice to have all these tools and such when we were doing the Wild West Exodus stuff. Holy smokes, that would have been nice. Yeah, if you want to check that out, I think the blog address, that's just wappeliusblogspot.com. You want to see Wild West Exodus stuff, what is there, about 200 blog posts or 300 on Wild West Exodus stuff? And, oh, well, that's another, it's fortuitous that you should mention that, because in Wild West Exodus, there was, everything was glowing. The most factions that were using the, was it RJ27 or whatever that was? Oh, hey, Kim. How's it going? Oh, just finished it. Oh, at LVO. Actually, well, you know me, of all the places, they'd say, okay, you got 200 countries to pick from to visit. Well, you know which place I'm choosing, without a doubt. I think the only way we can ever actually make that practical is to make it part of a teaching tour of some kind. I have no idea about the logistics of that. That's something we'd have to research, I suppose. But that was, we figured that is the one way. If we're ever going to get there and we make it just a big teaching tour or something like that, that might actually make it possible because of resources and all that other sort of stuff. I have no idea how passport things or visas would work out for something along those lines. But now is this? Look at that. You can see there's the get a green tint there. You got some brown over here. It darkens down here. To me, it's a little bit easier to do this with the transparents. They actually act more like these guys here, the Reaper clear paints, and people have seen me use these often enough. You know how much I love those. Whereas these can get you watermarks sometimes and pooling and other weird things. Now let's look at this. Let's look at the 18 mil, and I think it's 22, and I believe this is almost half the cost of this. So mathematics, that's kind of how that goes. Look at all the nifty. See how that also dries very matte? Well, all of the ProAcryls are kind of designed to dry transparent. Oh, imagine the results you could. Yes, that's for sure. What about the UK? We talked basically. Let's see. Whether we wanted to. I know when we were talking with Roman, there was the idea of maybe doing one through Germany or something like that. It would kind of be fun. Maybe, I don't know, each year or something like that. Maybe a different area, which could be fun. Heck, I'd certainly be up for that. It's just someone else who knows a lot more about that than me would have to help me with the logistics on that, because I just have no idea. There's some friends of ours that I think might be able to, because they do European teaching tours and such. I mean, who knows? Maybe I just do it as part of their little group, which probably maybe makes the most sense of all. So I'll inquire about that. It could be a rockin' good time. I don't know if they have plans to do Australia at all. Who knows? Maybe I can convince them to do that. But I just did another secondary glaze right there. Just kind of doubled down on that. To me, yeah, look at this. See how I'm able to just scumble that and even remove it with my hand? That's something that the contrast paints don't necessarily like that. We'll just go there. Now we've got some faded ultramarine blue. This is one of the regular, as I make the invisible air quotes. It's one of the regular ProAcryl colors. Regular ProAcryl colors, there's something that they have always in common, and that is they cover like crazy. They dry super matte, but they're also gonna cover like mad. So that's something you just gotta be aware of. Oh, Chris is here. Yeah, it's been a interesting year already. It feels like it's been a couple of months in, but we're only 3 weeks in plus. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the, see that faded ultramarine mixed with the transparent paint to try and get that to be a little bit less coverage. Now, this, I don't know if this is all going to fit under the screen here, but that right there, this is actually going to be used Saturday at a Blood Bowl tournament. This is Army Painting Series 16. Actually, it's my Lizard Man. Wow, that was the most challenging series of all, because I had to paint not just 12, 13 players and markers, turn markers, score markers, that sort of stuff, but each one of them was in a different color scheme. I kid you not. Every single one in a different color scheme. So now you're seeing right here where it's been dry. Look at this. Look at that. We're going to mix a little bit of our transparent black with the faded ultramarine. So you can see it makes us essentially a semi-translucent sort of a I just call them dry glazes these days. It's it's sort of a glaze, but it's not a glaze. You don't see a whole lot of water there, but because of the nature of the transparent paints, well, you can see how that works. And the nice thing again, I can thin this further with water without running into any problems. Boy, I think of the Wild West Exodus stuff and all of the different types of paint and the basing stuff. Man, there's just so many tools and, like, oh my gosh, products out there that it's weird to think that maybe they existed before then. Oh, the texture rollers, all that kind of stuff. I didn't know about it. I did not know about those things before. Another thing, we want to establish the glow as early as possible. Let's do that. So now here's something you got to well, let's just take some of the. So this is the deal with the fluorescent blue here, and this is the way all of the Vallejo fluorescents are. Like it's basically a blob. Whereas, see, this over here is fluorescent paint. This is more like the consistency of these transparent paints. So something to keep in mind. What I'm going to do is actually let a touch of that fluorescent get into there. And again, this is not about it glowing in the dark. It's just about enhancing, making it that much more saturated. And now let's figure out what is the extent of our object source lighting. We're probably going to want some here. You notice this is another reason I didn't get too involved in painting the face and the torso straight away. This is the other reason why I paint the entire figure at once. This is why I don't just paint the face or paint the coat or the cube. We're doing it all at once. The entire thing. We treat it as one basically unified object. And I'm just double checking to make sure that the face is dry. One thing I've noticed too, and I like it, is that the transparent paints, they will dry a little bit faster than your contrast paints. Here, let's go just establish a little more of our glow here. Down here. But this can be, what do we want to say? This can go berserk really fast with the object source lighting. This is another reason to establish it as soon as possible, as close to the beginning stages as you possibly can. Here I'm going to get a little touch more of the fluorescent blue in there. And now let's see if we can't get a little bit of more of a glow in our cube. We've got a lot of the darker tones in there, but now we're going to start to make this a little lighter. All the while, you see I've got all these different tones that I can work from. Same as if I was mixing, I don't know, a flesh tone or something like that. It's a little reservoir of the colors that I'm going to need. Just allows me to, again, get this all situated as fast as possible. Now I'm going to go in with my, that's almost where I need it to be. There we go. His eyes don't seem to be glowing. They're just regular eyes, nothing fancy. Now, of course, I guess the dark red face is pretty ideal for, I'm going to get a little more green into that. It's the perfect contrast for this. Nice opposite color Now, the other thing too, just as I mentioned before, the more of the, say that, the titanium white that's in there, this will be less translucent, which is kind of a, well, blessing and a curse, I suppose you could say, because it's going to make it easier to cover over previous layers. But that can also be part of the issue, is that it actually makes it super easy to cover previous layers, and sometimes you don't necessarily want that. But we do want to see how, at this point I want to see how bright is the brightest bright I can get here. You notice I'm situating that towards the bottom first. Now the picture there in the lower right, that shows sort of a crackling energy type thing going on. So I want to see if I can start to work some of that in here. Let's see what we can do with this. Because I've seen, all the ones I've seen so far basically show the cube as almost like just a solid glowing mass, rather than there's some kind of crackling energy inside it. That image, the one towards the lower right, also makes it look a little more transparent than what I've seen in some, a little less frosted. Now let's put a little more of this glow on his face. Let's just give him some eyes real quick. Not that they're going to be glowing blue, but here, I'm going to keep using that. I'm glad I had the fluorescent green out there, because it is keeping this from getting too, just say, ultramarine blue. The other thing with object source lighting, and it's something that, I think it was a video I was working on a few months ago, maybe over the summer or whatever, and I noticed, especially with the Hellboy video that I did, you actually have to be aware of, if you got a light source like this, then you actually have to think about casting shadows on the miniature, as in the miniature is casting shadows on itself. Oh, ARX Minis is here. And good afternoon. Well, we definitely have a good chunk of our Australian contingent here, which makes me feel good. Well, speaking of weather, I am actually hoping that it is no longer 40 to 50 degrees Celsius or anything like that. That maybe that's calmed down and you can have the rain if you wish it. I could try and somehow teleport this rain to you guys, because, well, we don't need it at all, and you guys do. Actually, anybody worldwide that wants rain or liquids of any kind, just come here. They're waiting for you, and there's plenty of extra. It does not take long to start to build this up. Oh, Fruity Scone is memory. Oh, hey, Daka Flocka Flame. Say that 10 times and not get yourself in trouble. I will not attempt it, because I probably will end up with some sort of non-YouTube friendly mispronunciation. That's for sure. I just this stuff right here I used. There's a few of these. So here's yellow, magenta. There's an orange, and I used those on the lizardmen. I was using them in my metallics. Well, not my. It was non-metallic metals, but I was using them in the metals there. And boy, they were doing some amazing things. I will have to try them. Well, yeah, you're going to see them plenty on the Ossiarchs. No doubt about that. You're going to be seeing those guys on the Ossiarchs. Here, let's do some of this crackling energy stuff here. Can you see that? I bet you if I did some of this, you might be able to see that. I'm going to try some right over here. Now that is again, the ProAcryl white mixed with that fluorescent green. Yeah, see that little bit of crackling energy right there? How about we do it here? How about we do that here? And then let's tone it down. And we'll do some here. What I will do is maybe turn up the brightness once we're well past this stage and we get into things like his coat and other such items. But let's find what our lighter areas are going to look like here, because I see so many times, oh my gosh, I've seen this ad nauseum where someone's trying to do object source lighting, and the part that's supposed to be the light is actually darker than the fabric or whatever the surface is. The part that's supposed to be light is actually darker than the surface. So it doesn't translate as object source lighting, it translates as object source shading. And that's a different, we don't want OSS, we want OSL. We want to put the lighting in lighting. Who'd have thought that would have to be a t-shirt worthy phrase? So I'm going to, oh, let's see, Eric's is in Taiwan, it's 22 Celsius. Ooh, that's got to be about maybe 77-ish in Fahrenheit. That sound 22 Celsius is sounding pretty pleasant temperature-wise. Because I think you got to be in, what, the 27-ish range to be in the 80s. Yes, that's me doing the whole Guess calculus or Guess Celsius scale. Because that's just what I do. Now, his eyes... Oh, look at that. I'm seeing the one in the lower right. They're actually glowing. Maybe we'll do that, maybe not. But in any case, I am going to get the lighter tone there. No, this is where I gotta be judicious here. Oh, you know what? Let's actually play with a little bit of the Achillean green in this too. There we go. Let's see if we can't find ourselves with this. I think that's going to actually hit this, but more so along the edge. How much farther down do I go here? And these are the same decisions that you'll have to make every time you do the object source lighting. You have to decide how far across the miniature do I do this. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I have my little flashlights with me. Yeah, hoping that things in Australia are... It seems like it's become more of a dealing with the aftermath instead of the still happening. Oh, I'm sure it's still in some places, still going on. So let's get ourselves some lighter tones up here too. I mean, geez, it is the arm after all. It's the closest thing to our cube. But let's grab some of the Achillean here. Touch of that fluorescent green, and you can see I'm going to use it a little bit like a glaze there. Very subtle. Here, let's glaze this down too. And I do this all the time. We go back and forth. Close, it's about 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. There's certain parts of the scale that I get a little bit mixed up on. And I think the one thing I've never really been able to do is translate. So when it's -5 degrees here Fahrenheit, That's the one thing I have trouble in my just calculating in my head. Okay, how does that relate to Celsius? Do I want to get some down here? We'll see. We're going to find that out now. But something like this. And transparent, it's dark. How good you can see that. And see how that's just going to be scumbled across the surface. A bit of an impression. Oh, let's get some on his boot here. I can't really... Yeah, the boots seem to be very polished, so... I guess that's another little thing we'll be working on here is try and get boots that have some polish to them. Now, all of the Marvel Crisis Protocol figures, they come with these bases here. Ordinarily, I would just make my own, but there's a very specific size to the bases because of the way the game works and the way the different templates work and such. So not a bad idea to me, I think, just to stick with the bases as they are. I will let a little bit of a hint of it, just a hint of that light there. So we've got that pretty well established. What are we going to do? What are we going to do about his head? Well, let's move away. As much as we love our transparents and all that kind of stuff, let's move away from that here. And what I'm going to do is make myself some more opaque reds. But it's only semi-opaque. It is not... I mean, look at it. See how that goes over my glove? And it shows through. Look at this. As I put that on there and almost scumble it on. Look, I can still preserve some of the darker tones that I already put in place. Right? It's why would you want to be wiping out what you already did? Seems like he's got a hint of an ear there. A hint of an ear over there. And we'll just, now we're gonna see just how, see the pictures show that, okay, less of the yellow in there. Actually, what the heck, I'm gonna actually grab some of that, some of my fluorescent in there. Yeah, okay, that's better. Because I'm looking at both reference pictures and they both sort of agree there. Minus 40 is easy to remember. Well, let's see. We have not had here, not like the last few years, the polar vortexes where it's minus 50 Fahrenheit. We haven't had those. Sometimes those happen in February, though. Here you never quite know. I mean, I've seen frost on the ground in June. So, all right. You know what? I'm not gonna say he's got gloves on. I'm just looking at the little reference here that's on the screen with me where I'm painting. That shows his hands as red. That's handy because it's going to give me that much more of a contrast over here too. So no gloves. Maybe that's how it was intended to be, but we are going glove free here. Now I'm not going to jinx it, but while the chat was weird, at least there's some other things that haven't been happening as far as frames and that sort of thing. So here's hoping that stays the way it was. Ever so slight. Let's see. Hasn't gotten closer to minus 30 around the last couple of years. Now I have no idea what minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit translates to as Celsius, but it's got to be a kind of ungodly number. Here, let's get a little red there near his collar. And I'm seeing, when I look at those reference pictures, there's a bit of glossiness to the skull. Now I don't know if that's because it's more of a mask than anything else, or what's the reason behind that, but it does show a bit of glossiness. Now remember, the more of that, any kind of the, let's say the faded ultramarine, let's use the faded ultramarine to lighten this a bit. There we go. That's going to give us a, because look at that picture on the, again, the lower right hand corner, you see a fair amount of bluishness to those highlights. I'm gonna put even more in there. Now it looks pink on the palette, but on him, because it is just such a small area that we're gonna use that. Now so minus 50 is minus 45. Okay, so that's a more of a direct translation then once you get into the minuses. Okay, good to know. Here, let's have this transition into that reflected color. However, though, I didn't completely wipe away my warmer reds, because here we are going to let that get warmer. And we're going to let this side also get a touch warmer. I don't quite know. I haven't seen anything that shows what that symbol is going to be. I'll just come up with maybe some kind of generic lighter grayish type of tone to put on that. Going a little bit lighter here. But with this coat, we can't just let the coat be a bunch of dead gray colors. Right, we have to get some greens in there. We want to make that be a little more lively than just a bunch. So we got some greens too, some tans. Just because it's dark, that's why that last one there, that what was that, the not Vandal, Black Panther. That's why I did that one, because that was a way to show how to, well, A, paint black without using black, because no black was used. The transparent black it's really not black. It's, at first I thought maybe it was more of a Payne's gray, but I think it's actually more of something like an ivory black. So it's a warmer black, something that actually has some color to it. Now, I'm going to actually take some purple here and your transparent black. This also tends to work a little bit better than, say, the contrast paints. This works more like my liner paints that I love so much. It's a little bit easier to actually do fine lines, and even, so we've got him looking again towards his little magic box there, his little magic cube. We're going to start to reinforce a few lines. I am going to get some blue into that. Remember that whole idea of the shadows being cast. I've got to start thinking about that now. I guess the tie is just dark. Again, some separation there. So here we just reinforce those edges, and we can go a long way. We can go much further with the lighting on that. But that's got to wait until we figure out what's happening with the rest of them here. This belt, is this belt going to be darker than everything else or lighter? So I have to figure out here, is that going to be darker or lighter? But I am going to, I've got a little bit of a seam here, it looks like. We're going to get some of the shadows here. So the shadows, essentially almost like a purple. It's basically purple and black mixed together. Let's get the other side of that. There we've got some folds here going on. Now let's see what we can do with his boots. And I guess a couple of things with the boots, if you want to have that sort of shininess going on here. Let's bring up the reference picture a little bit larger here. And this is with the faded ultramarine. Now on the other side of this, not going to let it be quite as bright, but I'm actually taking, look at this, I'm going to take that purple-black mix. That is going to tone down a little bit of the, essentially kind of a purple, that faded ultramarine. Here's a little more. You think, wait a minute, you are using purple to highlight black, shiny boots. And yes, I am. That is exactly what I'm doing. Because if we want those to stand out from everything else, we can't just do in the same greenish grays as everything else. And what's the other thing too is this faded ultramarine. It looks really bright on here, but guess what? Compare it to the actual white, not bright at all. So that is starting to, again, give us that little bit of a shiny crease look there to the boots. If need be, I can always go in there and knock it down. But here, all right, so I think I can make his pictures, but see some of those blues that are reflected on his boots? That's what we're going to try and do right now. Oh, Kim says there's still 100 fires. More than half are contained, and there has been some rain. That was, yeah, there was a little bit of rain, but yeah, that can always, like you say, that can flip right back around again into super dry, or, well, I guess the rain is a double-edged sword, especially if it comes with lightning, because that's not going to be handy. Let's see, I'm going to, you know what? We're going to do a little more here, but remember that shadow thing? That notion of a shadow, we got to put that in here. So that's where we're going to do something like that. But now we need some reflected light. We got transparent brown over here. We're going to mix that with some of the faded ultramarine. Why are we doing that? Because we're trying to reflect some of this ground color, or the cement. I'm just assuming that's cement. So yes, they're black boots, but if they're going to be that shiny sort of stuff, well, they're going to be reflecting everything around them. That's kind of how shiny works, as you can see. And I just added, again, a little more of the transparent plate paint. But definitely, well, best to look to all of our Australian friends there. That is, now, I guess the air quality is good enough in Melbourne because they're playing the Australian Open. I think they're in the third round now. There was actually a local wild card that had advanced to another round. All right, we're gonna go here. We're gonna double down with this. I like this here. That is, again, the faded ultramarine, and we're basically mixing it in with the concrete color that we already had. Because what better way to reflect the color, making it a little bit lighter, than to use that color in the first place. I'm also going to, just like we did with the faded ultramarine in other places, see that, just a little bit of a scumbling there, just using the edge of the brush right there. Okay, I see this needs more, so we're going back to our faded ultramarine. There, That gives us the little brightness we needed there. We need some over here too. We need some over here. Now, I'm going to go back to that touch of green here. We're going to make that a little darker. It's basically just making it a little bit more solid in appearance. I'm even going to use a little bit of that right over here on his head. It's not just making it darker, it's also, remember, if I thought the head had some slightly reflective property to it, well, we've got to reflect his coat that he's wearing. And again, the idea here is not to make it look, oh, what would we say, like it's a mirror or something. It's a qualified reflection, we'll put it that way. I'm going to go back to my little touch of the brown there and trying to just get the top of the shoulders here a little more light. There we go. His arm here. Now, I don't know if the coat is supposed to be, well, it's kind of the same shiny leather. You know, the, what would that whole kind of trench coat that's got the slick, shiny leather to it. I don't know. I'm not real up on my Marvel superhero type things, so maybe that's something somebody in the chat can say, yeah, his coat's supposed to be shiny, or no, it's not. You know what I mean, that sort of shiny, reflective leather. Well, kind of like his boots. But I am going to keep finding some lighter areas. Yeah, well, here's hoping you get some, the weather in Sydney stays at least reasonable. Yeah, let's get a little more of our faded ultramarine here. Now, these things, we'll just, who knows, I might just, the final verdict on those might be faded ultramarine. It's interesting. It almost kind of looks like an octopus symbol there. Not quite sure. That I do have. There's more of these. I've got. Was it? I think it's Akoya and Doc Ock. Doc Ock, I think, are some of the other ones that I've got going. I can show you those later. We'll do those in live sessions. At least that's the plan. It's supposed to be shiny. Well, then let's see what shiny we can make here. That means we can start boosting some of these highlights a touch. We'll essentially do kind of like what we were doing on the boots. Now, for folks that are new here that haven't seen these before, I try and do these as often as I can. It usually ends up being maybe twice a week. And they are typically around this time. This would have started probably a half hour earlier, except YouTube was doing some very strange things, which is why I don't say at this time every single day or on this day I stream. I go live right at this time all the time because YouTube in general just has way too many surprises for me. But if you do the subscribe thing, that's great. What's better is if you don't be like me, don't forget to hit the all notifications bell because I forgot it myself this week, subscribed somewhere, forgot to hit the bell, or maybe I just didn't see the bell. Sure enough, like a week and a half later, they were doing a live event, and yeah, I found out about it a wee bit later. Now there, see, I mixed a little bit of white into that because, hey, we heard there's shiny here, so we're going to give ourselves some shiny. And the reason I'm going a little bit lighter up there and less so down here is again, another one of those things where don't do what I do. I used to highlight the bottom of the figure almost as much as the top of the figure. Not so handy. You lose all kinds of, I mean, it'll be nicely shaded, yeah, but you lose just massive amounts of definition that way. So not really something you want to be doing. So don't be that me. You want to be this me that saves the lightest highlight colors for the top and not the bottom. I suppose we could do the mud spatter or dust on the bottom of the coat too, but I mean, it is more of an urban environment. I keep thinking more bolt action wise. Alright, so now that we've started to get face and other areas built up, let's go back to our object source lighting here. Let's see where we can find a bit of a lighter appearance to it. Now I'm going to keep using that Achillean green here. Because see that blue, I'm going to use that, but that's going to be around the edges of the cube. Where is that cube going to hit him? It's going to hit him right here. Like you do. Is that gonna? It's gonna leave a little bit of a lighter tone right there. Gonna hit some of these buttons here, I'm sure. Let's get that. I'm sure some kind of metal. So I am actually going to go even lighter with that. We got to give it some shiny, and that does it. See a couple little sparkly highlights right there. Now, this is where things get interesting. I'm actually going to go back in there and I'm going to tone that down because that just got brighter than I wanted it to be. This little epaulet right here, going to highlight that side. Now, the coat's going to be shiny. That changes this around a little bit. What I was going to do here means I can actually make these a little brighter. Because heck, I mean, you are basically shining a flashlight onto shiny leather. So it should be shiny, and we're going to give it some shiny. I'm glad that I went with the no gloves look on him there. That little bit of red right next to his blue cube, very handy. Now, let's go to the face, but this is where we're going to start doing this. So we're going to be taking we're kind of making our own Achillean green there. So basically I took some of the blue. That was the transparent blue. And mixed it with some of the fluorescent green, and that gave me that sort of nice glowing jade color. Just making sure now, of course, the cube is sort of blocking his face a bit. Let's get some lighter stuff going on in his face here. Sometimes with things like this, you maybe exaggerate. And it is a comic book character after all, so a little bit of exaggeration here and there maybe is kind of in order. So I think if I hold it this way, you'll be able to see. Oh, I see the Hydrus, and his shoulder is white, has a red border. Now that is very helpful. Because I try to find references for these guys here, but I try not to say, okay, we are gonna. I don't try not to do too much of the I don't know, looking ahead and almost painting it in my head first, because if I do that, you don't necessarily get to be in on the thought process. And I think it, well, like here, I heard that the coat is different than kind of what I was assuming that it was, and I had to basically switch on the fly, which is really good because that's another one of the, yet another reason why I talk about this kind of method where you're painting the whole thing all at once, because you need to make that change. What's the big deal? You can make that change. So let's again go over here to our fluorescent. Let's start to go on the edges of this cube here. There we go. That is nifty. Now what I've seen people do is that the edges of the cube sort of stay that darker tone. But yeah, I'm looking at that reference over there. And that reference that I see towards the right makes me want to try something. It could be totally the wrong thing, and I'll have to change it back to what it was. Not a big deal. Wow, look at that. So that is the fluorescent green mixed with the transparent paint from Creature Caster. Now, I'm going to go back into here like so, and we're going to start to put in, for lack of a better term, some shadows in our lighting. I know that sounds weird, but like here, it's so close to the light source that my shadow areas would not be warm or anything like that. Let's see if we can, I'm going to see if I can go a little darker. Now this, holy smokes, that is handy. The more that I use the transparent paints, the more they become a favorite. But we'll definitely say this. If you're looking for 34 different ones, I believe that's how many of the contrast paints there are. You're not going to have those. Oh, Engineer to Draw is in the house. Well, of course, now YouTube shows 0 viewers, but 0 drop frames. So that's good. I'm going to assume that I'm still going here. Well, no matter what, I'm just going to keep going. Oh, I just did a little bit of blue shading under there. Let's get a touch of, yeah. Let's, yeah, I gotta get some, well, now that I know that I was informed that this is a shiny coat, it means we gotta get some shiny on this. And normally I'd be reflecting the ground, but I think in this instance I'm gonna carry some of the blue there. Now let's get in between his fingers here with a little action. Almost forgot about that. Oh, there, Fafid, actually Nehuan. I like that second name. That's it actually sounds very Lord of the Rings. It sounds like the Valar or something like that. But I know I'm probably wrong on that. Boy, I'm so tempted. See, I like that darker edge around the cube. Oh, what the heck? What do we got to lose? Oh, yeah. That's not bad. I'll stick with that. So you saw we're just taking a little bit of an edge here. Just a bit of an edge. I mean, it is as much as I'd like it to have that darker edge, then it would look more like a glowing ceramic tile. And I don't think that's what this is supposed to be. I am gonna get just a bit lighter on some of the corners here. Not every single one. And it won't be 100% across the entire cube. Let's be judicious about this. Yeah, I'm really, so this is a, you're seeing this combination with these two guys here, the fluorescent and the transparent blue, which is really fun. Now I'm going to get a little more of the, yeah, let's get that to be a little bit more towards the green. Let's get in here, and so we've gone back and we've traveled all the way back here to this cube. But one thing that is neat, we have still some of the more reddish fluorescent blue. Let's not forget that. Okay, let's not totally forget about that. And that is the fluorescent blue from Vallejo. Yeah, because I'd started to see it was all green in here. All of that. I mean, it's nifty. This thing that I'm using right over here, that's nifty. But if we wanted to have a little more depth, just like everywhere else here, we got to, yeah, I'm even going to get some of that onto his coat here. Yeah, that was a good plan. We're going to get some here. This needs more. Oh my goodness. I just peeked over there and I went. Now, I guess we have another thing here, too. You can tell just how much dark I established early on, because look at this. I'm going to take a little bit of white here, and we'll put that next to that. Look at how dark that is by comparison. Oh, and Gray Mouser by Fritz Lieber, American fantasy horror writer. Ah, okay. I'll have to ask Kathy if because I don't know if she so much reads horror, but she loves obviously reading the fantasy stuff. But yeah, this looks light. Oh my god, it looks like a highlight. This thing right here is barely a middle tone at this point. And for those you're wondering, what the heck is a middle tone? You get a grayscale, right? A color value scale. One's the lightest, 10's the darkest. Think of that 4, 5, 6, 4 through 7. That's your middle tone range. Oh, look at that. Now let's get a little bit more on the side of his coat here. That cube is in a really handy spot as far as casting light in as many possible places. Really fun. I will get a top edge to that, and I'm going to catch a highlight there. Now this can't be quite that bright. I'm only doing it that bright at all just because of well, if he's got a shiny coat, well, then we best make that shiny. Let's also now make this thing a little bit lighter. It's a Hydra. Okay, so because it looked like it had some heads on it there. Red border, so let's just go with the white into there, and then guess what? We will carry some of this onto his coat here. Try and get some shininess that way. Now let's get this collar a little more on the roundish side. The other thing too is now at this phase, okay, if I go too berserk with the highlights on his coat, then it's not going to get as much glow on that cube. Let's get an edge here that's lighter. Same over here. Let's get this a little lighter. Let's definitely get some form of a highlight on that. You notice that I've got this is the transparent brown, and the faded ultramarine. Faded ultramarine again gives it the opacity, not just the lightness. And that's a really important, well, I can't emphasize enough. It's almost like I'm doing an oil painting thing and I keep talking about always be aware of how thick or thin your paint is. I guess as far as acrylics go, that's the closest equivalent to it, where when you use things like these transparents, or you use the contrast paints the way I like to use them, it becomes that much more important to know, all right, how much opacity do I got here? Is this going to cover? Not all paints cover so well. We know that. The yellows tend to not cover it well. The Creature Caster yellow, that actually covers pretty darn well. Makes it all of those, in a way, it can make them really handy for object source lighting. So even here in my glow, I can see some hint of purple in that glow, or bluishness, but then some of that greenish blue. But we are going to take some of this. And then gonna do some of the white here. No, that's just too much of the white. Let's see if I can go back in a little bit of the crackly energy stuff here. Aha, that corner of the cube is actually exposed. That's not his hand. So we'll just paint the cube there, which was sort of missing. We're actually going to darken that down a touch. And remember the other thing that we can do, because we've got all these super translucent paints, right? We got transparent fluorescent green, the transparent blue over here. When things maybe we say they're too bright, we make them a little bit darker. We just knock them down. Just knock those down some more. I've got a ton of videos on object source lighting of every color, every type, multiple light sources. Now, most of those are going to be on the Patreon page, I'll say that, especially in the army painting series. And as I just finished the Lizardman series today. It was the first 6-episode series. But this right here, this using the fluorescence like this, that was something that I hadn't done in a long time with my metals. And it was really fun to kind of rediscover that, but with a much handier type of paint. See, look at how I just got a few zots of the nifty little kind of fluorescent jade there that we made. Now, let's do his fingers here. I'm going to go some purple mixed with red, and the idea is to make those almost a little darker. Once again, it's going to make that cube stand out that much more. You must have dark to show light. Where does that finger end? I'm guessing it ends over there. There we go. Now we've got there's a transition here. That it's not so much of a highlight line, it's just it just ends too abruptly. We got to make this more extended here. And I'm just going to drag that a little more across his face. I'm trying to consult the reference pictures here too at this point. Yeah, I'm I'm going to give that maybe a touch of the blue there, but here too, because I'm looking at the, again, the reference on that lower right hand side. And I want to extend this a little bit further up here. I think, yeah, I think we needed that. And I might even go a little bit lighter. I'm just going to take some of, again, some of the white and go into my mix over there. Hopefully you can see this. Seems like everything about him is shiny. The skull is shiny, his coat's shiny, everything's shiny. I guess that's a thing. Now let's spread that out a little bit more here. And how are we going to do that? We're going to take that other original fluorescent blue that's not going to cover so well, and that's our advantage because we don't want it to. You can see I almost did a bit of like a cross hatch there, something we used to do back in the days of illustration. When we were doing ink illustration, all you had was a rapidograph pen, and all you could do was draw a solid line and nothing else. Well, the only way you could get any sort of soft shading effects, let's get a little brown into this here, a little bit of my transparent brown, was to do some kind of, you could either do stippling or cross hatching. Well, stippling just kind of drove you nuts because you'd just be doing it forever. The cross hatching though, and I had to think about it even here, is doing that with some directional strokes. You know, you're following the basically the miniature itself. Now this is some of the original glazes here. Those are still nice and wet for me to use. Oh, that's another thing too, is the transparent paints seem to be much more cool working on a wet palette than say the regular ProAcryls, which aren't necessarily engineered for wet palettes. Some things can happen. I mean, I've used them with wet palettes before, so it's not like anything horrible is going to happen, but it's just be aware. So let's get those. If we're looking for shiny there, let's do that. And then we've got the symbol over here. We'll make that a little lighter. Again, it's supposed to be a Hydra, I guess. So let's see what we can do. That actually, for me, I would just really prefer that it was not sculpted in there. I know why companies do that, because not so many people enjoy the freehand quite like I do. And I got tons of freehand videos. You can check out my last 2-3 Lord of the Rings videos. There's a whole bunch of freehand there. I don't do, what would you say, specific, well, here we're going to paint leather, or here we're going to paint this or that. I will try and combine several things into one demo like this, because this was not just object source lighting. There was some color theory to this too. We're also trying out the ProAcryls again to give them a little different run. We're trying a different type of fluorescent paint. These are all the things that I try and do to kind of maximize the information that you can get in 2-3 hours. Now, while it shows I have 0 viewers, it's still showing that I have a timer. So this is 1 hour and 14 minutes right here, and this was nothing but primer. It was basically this. It was a Badger Stynylrez primer a little over 1 hour ago. And We have done all kinds of experimentation. We got our lighting going on. That's why I like this work on the entire figure at once, because you can get, it's not just faster results, you can get better, faster results. And I think that's something we're all after. Here, let's get some more reflected light in these boots. Yes, they are supposed to be black, but if they're shiny, we've got to reflect some other colors onto them. Now I might mess around with a few touches of lighter color here. So 17, thank you very much for the information. I appreciate it when people are on my eyes and ears, because Trevor was kind enough to shoot me a note to tell me that the chat was not actually going to appear unless I told it to. There. See, this is basically a muted, a little bit of highlight right there. Let's see if we can't get these guys now. Like this. That belt buckle there, I'm wanting to do something with that, but we're going to wait. We're going to wait till we can get his collar. So light there. Trying to get another thing of light on his face. I'm looking at the way this is drawn. I need to almost make it look like he's got, I don't want to say teeth here, but they've got the way the muscles there. Well, I don't know if they're actually really muscles or not. So he's got his eye, he's got his one eyebrow that's kind of up here. Now, is that cube going to reach that part of his face? I'm going to say no, which means I'm going to go back over here towards my warmer red color. See what I can do over here on his eyebrow. And I'm trying to break this up. Yeah, that needs to be broken up. That was a little too smooth. And as I look at the references, no, there shouldn't be smooth there. Yeah, that's starting to make a little bit of a difference now. Oh, I might even go a touch further in a couple spots like there. Yeah, his face is starting to have a little bit more of a, see, it's getting a little bit of a rougher look there. Oh, Black Scleric, how's it going? Yeah, there's a couple of more here. So where are they? Aha. Oh, there's 3 more. So we've got, I'm not sure if that's Akoya or not. We've got this one. This one's going to be coming up. This one. And this is Doc Ock, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just going to get those out of the way so I don't drop them. And we'll get back to our stuff here. Oh, let's do this ear now. So that's 3 more there. Oh, I've got 2 more vehicles. And they're both going to be done as taxi cabs. Obviously, one's going to be yellow cab, one is checker cab. Now, somewhere from Green Stuff World, I just got from them the graffiti decals, which are really nifty. And what is that? There's like the dumpster, there is the newspaper stand, right? Yeah, that is going to have the graffiti on there. So it's going to be really fun to, okay, yeah, you put the decals on there, that's one thing. How do you make them not look like a decal? Like they are part of the surface. So that should be a really fun thing. I've never really tried doing any kind of graffiti stuff before. And of course, I mean, between this and Yeah, this would really be the ideal thing for it. Yeah, I'm glad I'm able to get those dots in there. I'm going to try and do it on his nose. There, yeah, that's better. Yeah, his face is starting to look a little bit now. It shouldn't look pristine and smooth. At least not according to these reference pictures that I see. At least not according to those. I have to, do I want to go, boy, I'm so tempted to go one level lighter here. So let's take this, some of our, let's see just how light that ends up. Not so much lighter, it's just a little more intense. That's good. That's good, because what I'm going to do is almost maybe through some darks now, try and make that look a little bit rougher here. So yeah, I can't think of his upper lip as the usual sort of upper lip that you would see. Can't think of it that way. But I am going to give that a little bit of an underlighting. Yeah. See what we just did right there? That's kind of important. And we'll go back to my purple and black here. Now I've got some more of the Hellboy figures to... There's just... Boy, there's so many different things that I've been prepping. I've got the Aeronautica, and then of course there'll be some Space Marine things coming along this way. And I guess, well, this is probably not till Adepticon, but I think I'm going to have to get me some of those new High Elf figures, because I think, well, gee, talk about bright colors, fluorescence, that sort of thing. Who knows, maybe we do this kind of bluish glow on everything, or maybe we go the opposite way and go a little bit more towards the fire. Yeah, I was tempted actually to put a flaming skull on his base here, just so that it would oppose the glow of the cube. But actually, I was glad I didn't do that, because it's really fun having this major light source right here. I'm just gonna essentially cast that in as much shadow as I can, working on his fingers there. It seems like he's got some pointy, probably because it's almost more skeletal. Let's see if I can find some darks in there. Yeah, I'm going to break that up a little bit. I don't even know if it's going to show up on camera, but it's just right here on his, basically his upper lip. Definitely not 0 viewers. Yeah, it's... I tried doing all of the updates and stuff, and I guess it still is going to be doing some weird... Oh, that really helps. Yeah, let's see if I can get... Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's starting to really get his face, get some nice depth in there. Here, let's go a little bit more with that purple and really... Actually, I'm looking at the picture. Almost, it's not like a, well, sort of a grin there. But I'm just going to do that with the darker colors. I'm not going to put a lighter color in there. Because sometimes you need to create light just by adding some more darks. Just by virtue of doing that, you actually get yourself some more light. Just like here, that became lighter because of the dark that I added next to it. Instead of just beating it to death with highlight after highlight. I always tell the story of the one class that I was teaching. It was a non-metallic metal class, and we always we're looking around the room, and we go, oh, okay, somebody's having a tough time. and they had that look on their face, and he just said, "Man, I cannot get this thing any lighter. I'm using white. I can't go any further." So I just said, "Hey, you mind if I grab the figure?" And I did that, and all I did was I put some darker color on the opposite side of the sword blade, and his lights became instantly, boom, very bright. And he said, "Ah, okay." And then he never looked back from there. Now I don't know if there's a pocket there necessarily, but I am gonna go here. I'm gonna grab some of this. Again, that's the transparent brown. I will get a touch of that red in there. And I'm just going to, yeah. So yeah, that adds a little bit of warmth in there now. But it's still very much a middle tone, a dark. We will add some of that down here too. Even in the shadow areas. I know people say, "Wait a minute, why are you actually putting a almost looks like a lighter color in the shadow areas?" Well, now maybe this is a 2D art thing, but it was drilled into our heads that your shadow areas, they gotta have an interesting color to them. If the color is boring in the shadows, because that's kind of that's almost like the infrastructure of your image. Man, if there's not much infrastructure there, well, it's gonna fall down. And they would constantly talk about, yeah, okay, you got all these neat highlights, but boy, why is there's not much in the middle tone, or you have lots of middle tones, but why do we have these darks that are just kind of nothing going on, very bland? And I suppose, I don't know, nothing like constant ridicule to change your outlook on things. But to this day, there's still that very sensitivity about, oh boy, those shadows better look a little more interesting than just a darker version. See that? See how it's going from the cooler colors up there, it transitions down into these sort of mid-tones, but we're going to take some of that faded ultramarine blue and it makes it ever so lighter and more. Yeah, look at that. So we've got all kinds of different waves of colors going on, but to the eye, it's going to look at them and go, "Yeah, that's gray." The eye is not going to see those as something that's special that you did there, and that's kind of the goal. That is sort of your goal there. You just want certain things to have an influence but be not noticed. A hidden influence. Now let's see if we can't. Oh, Clonehead, how are you doing? Let's see, you tend to watch the videos later in the day. Is this using only transparent paint? Where basically it's all the transparents with the exception of the bold titanium white. And everyone's favorite, the most powerful color in the universe, faded ultramarine. Look at that. That is battle tested, and yet it still survives. But that also comes, all of those are in the new size. And you've seen the videos before, like these would normally be like the Reaper Clears. And I would be using stuff like, here we go. So think of it like this, where I'd take the clear red and mix it with the Maiden Flesh. I'm doing the exact same thing. They're really similar. It's almost like they're just sort of a pure pigment type of a thing going on. Now here, okay, this is going to be shiny. I got to get some kind of secondary reflected light there. That is the transparent brown. But now we're going to go with, this is the black and the purple again here. We're going to go right along that red. We're going to enhance the, we enhance the dark to make our middle tone look lighter. And then there's a seam right there. Now we're going back in. That's that faded ultramarine blue that I just told you about. That's the one down in the lower right-hand corner. Just looking again for a few, kind of doing that linear highlight thing, the chain of highlights. This can be, I think, a tad bit brighter. So now this is one thing that's different. I think you've been seeing these more and more lately. Well, you'll be seeing more and more of those. Um, Actually, I just want to, in general, get some more of those to play with because I think even the regular ones, the non-fluorescent paint, there's even some transparents, believe it or not. But the nearest equivalent I can think for those as a comparison between the intensity of the color and the, what would you say, the viscosity or the consistency, kind of like the Chimera colors. So I'm going to get me some more of those as soon as I can, and we'll play with those. We'll do a miniature entirely in non-miniature paint and see what the heck happens. Who knows? They're not necessarily the cheapest thing in the world. Oh, hey Rob. Oh, what's your last vid on the transparents after Vince? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, like I say, I've learned more and more about them each time I've used them. Actually, the last time I used them, I think I learned much more about what they can really do. I think the first couple of times it was more just trying to compare them to the clears and the contrast paint. Not didn't really get a chance to see what do they do on their own. What can they just do by themselves? And the other thing too, I was mixing them with the Reaper clear paints and the not using the ProAcryl light colors. Once I started doing that, yeah, see we're adding some of the lighter, look at this right here. See this chain of highlights right there? That's the ProAcryl, a little bit of the white. See, it goes right down, but not everywhere. It's not equal everywhere. It's reduced in some places. Now we're gonna go into this cube here where this is that titanium white. Oh, well, you're welcome. You're welcome, Rob. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm always looking for some new thing, something I don't see other people doing. Maybe something where somebody says, "Oh, well, what about this?" And I try and maybe come up with a different solution for them. Heck, the whole reason I started using the contrast paints in the first place is that A, people asked, and B, the other request, and this was from mostly the patrons on the Patreon page, they said, well, we just can't get the Reaper paints here because we're obviously Europe, Australia, especially Australia, shipping, not real fun. So I tried to find things that maybe would be easier for you guys to get in your areas. Yeah, this is, now that I know this coat's supposed to be shiny, that means I can double down on a few of these highlights that I stayed away from because I just didn't know. And again, thanks for the information on that because, boy, it's really let me have some extra fun here. Yeah, look at, so there is, again, his collar has a little more depth to it. Let's bring up the brightness scotch here just a bit. I'm going to go over again. I'm taking that's the clear blue. That's the transparent green. Now we'll get our titanium white into that. And then we'll go back to our cube. Aha, that is, it's such a neat, it's very bright, but it's not chalky. That's the other thing too, as soon as you're just using white, people say, well, oh man, why is it so chalky? Now, that's part of the Patreon series is some color theory things, and there's one on red, one on yellows, one on blues, greens, even grays, and it really focuses in on how do you make things lighter but without getting things chalky. Now let me bring my chat back, covered it up with my camera controls. Oh, and now I think we are officially, we're about to close in on at least 280 some odd hours of tutorials when you sign up for the Army Painting Pledge level. And that's right there, the Patreon page scrolling across there. Yeah, because I believe this week I've added a good 12 more hours of tutorials. Well, heck, the last episode on the Lizardman was 3 hours long, which was on the heels of another 3-hour episode, which was on the heels of a 2.5-hour episode. You sense a theme here. Boy, I'm so glad that the coat was shiny because I could actually kind of really magnify some of these highlights even more. Here, let's go right down the line here with this. As you can see, we got that brown. Let's go back to that. Let's go, and I'm actually mixing some of the transparent brown with the color I was just using on my little cube up there. The other thing is by making this actually a warmer color, it's going to set it back, which is weird because usually the red is be the first thing your eye sees. Typically, warm comes forward, and cool in your mind's eye just kind of, well, sets the background. But here, the most intense color just happens to be, yeah, it's going to hit that. It just happens to be the cool color like this. Let me get my bit of a highlight going along this, and that's it. That's all it takes. Again, just like any kind of weathering, chipping, rust, all that sort of fun stuff. It's almost like the things that are the most fun can get too out of control the quickest. Probably because they're fun. I'm going to see if I can't get some more. Looking to get this edge and the corner touch of a little more there. But I've always got my other colors that I can go back into here. And that's it. Even if that is too light, I can knock it down again. Let's see. This needs to be intensified a little bit more. It's so close to the cube. Oh, we need a highlight there. And I'm also going to hit that epaulette some more. I think it was a while ago that we did the original little highlight right there. I'm going to see if I can get the red around this here and over here. Let's do some reinforcing. Again, that's the purple and transparent black mixed together. Underneath there, let's get some there too. Let's see this. As much as I like that mid-tone there. I've got to actually go, yeah, darker here. And then I'm basically moving the mid-tone down a little bit. Move that down to here. Yeah, that's a better transition. Again, some more brown. It's just brown mixed with the white. Here, let's throw a little bit more of the black out. And really, it's more of a ivory black. It's got a little bit of color to it, and we'll keep adding the purple to that. And now I'm going to add some darks in a few more places. We're going to add some cracks to our concrete. We've done it with the other ones. We'll do it here too, now that we've got this back. So we'll reinforce that one. And now we will sort of play off of that, but with some smaller cracks that radiate out like so. It seems like anytime you get these sculpted cracks into a base, they're a little bit on the chunky side. So let's see if we can make a much finer one here. And I'm thinking that maybe that needs to be influenced by something. So I'm going to start here with, again, that's the faded ultramarine. It's mixed with that black. There we go. That was looking a little too dark there. We influence that a bit. Here's some more. I'm actually going to throw a little bit of brown into that. That's the transparent brown again. So that and the faded ultramarine, that's a neat little mix. I like having those two together. And then let's do a little bit of this ever so. Let's see, we're going to essentially do a little bit of a highlight on the edge of that. It's going to give that glow a little more impact there without us having to maybe brighten up that entire area of concrete. We're just actually going to here hit the, I'm going to go back the other way here. Like that. But now out here, let's change the color. Maybe somewhat away from the turquoise. And it's just a hint. You can see it's a very broken line there. We'll do the same right along here. But having all of these, again, all it is the transparency here with a couple of these light colors, mixing them together. Because I know people, they've got their, oh gosh, what is it? The probably Black Templar, I assume, black for when they're doing it with the contrast paints and such. And then they're getting Dark Angels green. Well, what if you could just take the black and the green and mix them together and just make your own custom Dark Angel green that is the color that you need without having to get 34 jars at $8 a jar. It's just, I'm trying to, hopefully trying to save you guys some money. By all means, get the contrast paint. If it works for you and it's what you like, that's why I've been using it. To not necessarily because I like it, but because it's what other people can get when they can't necessarily get the Reaper stuff. And I'm going to actually go one more level here on the back of his collar and on his back too. Right here, if that's supposed to be shiny, we'll give it some of those, again, the shiny highlights. And then here, let's see, what do we want? Nope, I'm going to keep that the way I had it. I'm going to see if I can't sneak in. There we go. I wanted to sneak in some brighter stuff here in between his fingers, if I can. It's not really even going to show up necessarily. I think that still made a difference. I don't think, like I said, the ones that I've seen of this already didn't necessarily have the crackling energy going on. Always trying to do something that's not the same that everybody else has done. I'm going to go that much lighter here, right over his eye. That one on, well, what there is of his nose, I guess we'll say it that way. And a little, yeah. Thinking where this is shining down on him. That is so much, boy, when I first did that, I was treating it like it was just a regular upper lip, and it's certainly not supposed to look that way. So I'm glad I noticed that when I did, and was able to make that change. Because that's the other thing too, is what if I had painted the whole entire face, and then I've got to show, okay, now I'm going to do the object source lighting on there. Well, an awful lot of stuff that I painted is going to get wiped out. And that's just how it is. And that's, I think, what really keeps people from doing things like object source lighting, because they paint all this coat, they paint the face, all these other things, and now they've got to basically paste this effect over the top of it. And I think that just makes people real nervous, and that so many times I hear the phrase, I don't want to ruin it. And then they just end up not trying it at all. And then they'll never try it because they're still painting every single figure the same way. Where they're just painting one small part of it at a time. And I know it's very, really, really different than all the other stuff that's out there. This is not generally what people are shown. But then, if everyone else is showing the exact same thing, then, well, you shouldn't need to watch too many videos to know how to do that. I know with terrain, I try to find the people that are doing the things that I have not seen before, materials I haven't seen before, techniques that I haven't seen before. So yeah, wow, that is, I can still see my purple down in those boots there. I'm really, really jazzed about that. I'm really happy about that. People say, wait, why in the world would there be purple in black boots? There are on these boots. I'm putting some more in there. Even putting some purple over there. But now I'm going to go back to my purple and black mix, and then reinforce some darks for some contrast. Do I want to get, yep, that needed some. I think I need some right here too. Yep. So it's easy to get caught in the midtone slash highlight trap where you just keep adding more and more lights instead of, well, maybe we should go the other way. Maybe we should be adding some darks. That is where I'm going to go with this now, is adding some more darks. And it is not a black lining or anything like that. There's plenty of color to what's being added. I suppose this right now, this is doing the job of the Reaper liner paints. There used to be, and maybe they'll bring it back, I don't know. There used to be I think it was a violet liner. Yeah, and that was really cool. I really liked that. Maybe they'll bring that one back, but this is kind of what I'm doing. I basically made that. So I'm just going to look over here to make sure. Yeah, I just wanted to see if I was still in focus there. Yeah, so wish me luck in the Blood Bowl tournament Saturday. That's going to be interesting because I've played a whole bunch of other games since we used to play Blood Bowl, but I have not played that particular game since around 2007. That's going to be interesting because, of course, rules have changed, teams have changed, all kinds of things have changed. But I thought I just finished the Lizardman team and might as well use them. Might as well use those guys. Again, some nice separation there. Let's see if we can get something reflected here. That is the faded ultramarine. That's mixing with the... I almost called it clear red. Because I'm looking at that going, oh, that's clear red. There. So just, again, a touch of lighter color down there, as crazy as it sounds. We can't just have the same color red everywhere. So that little shift there, that little bit of purple reflected, to almost like a magenta color. Now I'm going to get some of that here onto his fingers. Yes, indeed, I just put some purple on his fingers. Let's enhance this edge light on the boot again. That's where we've got the shiny boot effect that's supposed to happen. Let's get that in there. Now that certainly needs to be lighter, I think. I'm going to hit this one more time. And so that, I think that definitely gets us our red skull there. It gives us our glowing effect. We did some experimentation, some further experimentation with the transparents from ProAcryl. Yeah, I think they really gave us some fun results. If you look back to some of the other videos that I do, you will see that this is very similar to how I use, say, the Reaper clear and liner paints. But if you're not in the US, it's kind of hard for you to get those. And hopefully this gives you some food for thought on what you can do with these. So I will, let's see, what is today's, well, it's basically Friday now. Either Monday or Tuesday, I'll try and do another live session for you. I'm also trying to get the Twitch channel going too, because I think that'll let me do maybe some other things that are I can't necessarily do here. So yeah, see that? You can see that the blue there, but then we get more into the purple over here. What I'm going to do is a little bit of a glaze there. I just needed a softer transition. And yeah, the transparent paints are really good for that. Really handy. But just be sure if you want to get the notifications of when wild things like this are going to happen. Just hit that subscribe and the bell, and then you'll get the notifications for when we're going to do wild stuff just like this. And if you're interested in a whole bunch more tutorials that cover an even wider range and array of topics, the Army Painter Pledge level, I think it's kind of hard to beat the amount of content that's there. We'll just put it that way. So this was actually way more fun than I expected. Eric asks, have you compared these to the Vallejo Transparents? And GW and Vallejo are the easiest for you to get there. You know what? The whole thing about the clear paints, I used to have, it was Vallejo no, it's called Transparent Red or Clear Red or something like that. And those were kind of similar. It's been years. Now, some of my old painting pyramid videos have, I think, actually that clear red or whatever it was from Vallejo. Yeah, a lot of these things, they do similar things, just like this, so similar to the clears and the liners and such. I'd have to try those. Maybe, well, let's see. Maybe I'll try and get some of the Vallejo, and that, if they call them transparents, they probably are going to be more liquid than these, because I mean, you can see these are more like paint, whereas here we'll take some of the Achillean green and we'll just pour it out there on the palette, and you can see that is way more liquid than, say, these are. But the Reaper clears, of course. Now that's the other thing too, is the creature caster jars, they're never going to plug on you. They don't, because we worked on those for a long time. So the consistency of these two is way similar. It's more, again, I want to say thicker, but don't think, oh my gosh, it's thicker. Yeah, let's pull some of that out. They're basically about the same, except this is more translucent. That is more translucent. So who knows, maybe the Vallejos are a little bit closer to that. There's a whole transparent set, thinking of grabbing it. Well, hey, now, of course, my whole introduction to the fluorescent paints was this website that I used to get my paints from. They had a clearance sale, and all of the fluorescent paints were on clearance for like 80 cents a jar. I just got them, figuring, I'll probably never use these things. Little did I know that they would be the cornerstone of so many other techniques. So yeah, you can, if you want to get those, especially if they're on sale, give it a shot and see what they do. And even just, well, do what I did with the contrast paints, where I didn't get 34 of them. I got 11, And I think I've never used more than 13 because a few people loaned me a few new colors. And I want to get this one more level of highlight there, maybe some there. So I think now we're starting to get some separation here, the hand from the cube. Now just set them on his side here so you can see it closer. So again, that's transparent brown mixed with some of the purple and a touch of our faded ultramarine to do that. Oh, we're going to go back to our little black and purple mix to solidify a few more darks here. It's just like on those boots there. I do need some firmer darks. I don't know if it's quite a black shiny leather jacket he's got, but I'm assuming it's pretty close to that. Leave that go. We are going to try and get... Remember I talked about casting a shadow. That's going to sort of be the shadow that gets cast there. But now it's mid-tone time again, and that's down here, reflecting some of the ground. Gonna get the faded ultramarine in on that action. Like so here, yeah, that was too much of just the greenish glow there. Oh, let's see. Eric says it's only 8 colors, so it wouldn't be. Yeah, that is it. That fluorescent, the whole set of them was that there's 6 of them or something like that. So it was not too onerous to get. Oh, and Rob has to have the original set of the ProAcryl, and they absolutely blew me away. Yeah, I think you will enjoy those. And like I said, I am gonna keep finding new things to do with them. Oh, the other thing too is that the ProAcryls, I found this out that they go through the airbrush very nicely. Heck, I even put them through the airbrush with no thinning at all. The transparents are like this, obviously probably even that much less thinning required to get those to go through an airbrush. That is something I'd like to experiment with more. And boy, look at me. I actually had the PSI. Oh my gosh. Well, it was certainly below 20, but it might have even been below 15, which for me, Mr. PSI 60, that was pretty incredible. So that is, to me, that's not too shabby for a little less than 2 hours. And that's from start to finish. And you can always watch these from start to finish. I try to make these, what's that, replayable as much as I can. I realize that we're talking and chatting about things here. I kind of like that for my sanity because it's been a really long day. I think I must have painted for at least 14 hours today before I even got to this. So it keeps me from going a little wild and nuts. I will go back over here. Again, that's a really nifty sort of magenta color there. Well, for people that are familiar with me, they've always heard me say things like, well, I could just use the Reaper Clears, a couple of light colors, and nothing else. That's it. That's all I need. I could see almost saying the same thing about the transparents here. That if need be, just give me these, what is it, 8 of them? What do we got here? 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, there's 8 of them. I could just use those 8 and a couple of light colors and pretty much make anything I need. It's a lot easier to carry that around. That's for sure. I want to thank everybody that was in the chat from all over the place. I appreciate also too that the heads up on the jacket thing there, because boy, that really made this a very fun episode. I could try all kinds of nifty things. I'm gonna say there's like a red patch back there, and I'm actually gonna make that also be white. I'm gonna say those are the Hydra heads. And we'll go with something like that. Let's see. Rob finds that any opaque paint will dry on the tip, and I go straight out of the airbrush. It is, I mean, I know GW has an airbrush paint or whatever, but once again, if you could get one paint that does that many different things, I know to me, it means I can get more miniatures. And I want more miniatures. Well, thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate it. I'm going to sign off for tonight. You can check out my Instagram account. See, it's right there. That you follow me on Instagram. That's where I usually have the pictures posted of these, the finished pictures, so you can check out all the other ones. You know, like Captain Marvel here. This was our very first one, and here's our most recent one. And you can check out all of them in the playlist there. Oh, wow. Actually, Ben, you were able to stay through the whole thing. That's fantastic. I know there's been so many interruptions when you were at work and stuff, but I'm glad you were able to see this one through. And this was fantastic here. Literally love doing this. So again, Marvel Crisis Protocol. This is Red Skull. And be sure to, if you can drop a like on this, that's always appreciated too. But check out that playlist for the other videos. I'll try and get some links for you too. So I will sign off and catch you guys next time. Thanks a lot, Rob, Trevor, and everybody else. Oh, you too, Arox. Appreciate it.